Some people don't feel lonely when they're alone. They feel lonely when someone gets too close, and that's the part no one talks about. The way your chest tightens when a text feels too warm. The way you pull back the moment someone starts to really see you. It's not that you don't want love, it's that love feels like exposure. If you've ever felt that quiet panic when things start getting real, you're not broken. You're protecting something. And if this feels familiar already, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Not for motivation, not for quick fixes, just for honest conversations like this, the kind we usually only have in our heads at night. Emotional distance doesn't look dramatic. It looks calm, independent, mature. You're the one who doesn't need constant reassurance, the one who handles things alone, the one who listens more than they share. People admire that about you. They say you're steady, grounded, low maintenance. But what they don't see is the constant measuring. How much did I reveal? Did I say too much? Are they expecting more now? You replay conversations in private, not because you regret being kind, but because you're afraid you were too open, too visible. You crave connection. That's the confusing part. You imagine deep conversations, late-night vulnerability, someone understanding you without you having to explain every detail. You want to be known, but the moment someone starts trying, something inside you shifts. A door closes quietly. Not slammed, just shut. It's subtle. You respond slower. You become busier. You convince yourself you need space, and maybe you do. But it's not space from them, it's space from the feeling of being depended on, being needed, being seen. Here's the tension you live with. You want closeness, but closeness feels like risk. You want someone to stay, but you also want an exit, just in case. And that just in case has been with you longer than you realize. You learned somewhere along the way that needing people wasn't safe. Maybe your feelings were too much for someone. Maybe vulnerability was met with silence. Maybe the people you relied on were unpredictable. So you adapted. You became self-contained. You stopped expecting comfort. You told yourself you didn't need it. That strategy worked. It made you strong. It made you capable. It made you the person others lean on. But it also made you careful. Careful with your emotions, careful with your hope, careful with how deeply you let anyone step inside your world. When someone starts caring about you consistently, it doesn't just feel good, it feels destabilizing. Because now there's something to lose, and loss, to you, doesn't feel like sadness, it feels like collapse. So you keep a little distance, not enough to ruin things, just enough to stay in control. You tell yourself you're just independent, you like your freedom, you value your space. And that's true, but there's another layer beneath that truth. You're afraid that if someone sees all of you, they'll eventually decide it's too much, or worse, not enough. So you give them edited versions, manageable pieces. You let them close, but not close enough to touch the parts that still feel fragile. And here's the quiet cost no one warns you about. The more you protect yourself from being hurt, the more you also protect yourself from being fully loved. You don't experience dramatic heartbreaks often, but you also don't experience the kind of intimacy that rewires you. You stay in relationships that feel safe, but slightly distant, or you leave the ones that start to feel too real. It's not sabotage, it's self-preservation. But self-preservation can become isolation in disguise. There are nights when you feel it, that low, dull ache, not because someone left, but because no one ever truly arrived, not all the way. You wonder what it would feel like to relax into someone, to not monitor your words, to not brace for disappointment, to not calculate how much you're giving. And then, almost immediately, that thought scares you too. Because if you let yourself need someone, and they disappear, it won't just hurt, it will confirm the story you've been quietly carrying, that closeness isn't stable. So you keep proving yourself right. You stay composed. You stay slightly out of reach. People describe you as mysterious, hard to read, independent. But if they could see inside your mind, they'd notice how often you imagine being understood without having to explain why you're like this.
You don't want to be chased. You don't want to be fixed. You just want someone patient enough to stay without demanding that you open all at once. And yet, when someone tries to stay, you test them, not intentionally, but through distance, through silence, through emotional pauses. You watch to see if they'll push through. Sometimes they don't. And when they leave, you tell yourself, see, this is why I don't get attached. But part of you knows they didn't leave because you were too much. They left because they could never fully reach you. That's the twist. Emotional distance doesn't just protect you from abandonment, it quietly creates it. Not because you're unlovable, but because love needs access, and access feels dangerous. Awareness doesn't mean you suddenly change. It doesn't mean you wake up tomorrow ready to spill every hidden thought. It just means you start noticing the pattern without shaming yourself for it. You survived by being self-reliant. That deserves respect. But maybe, slowly, gently, you can question whether every wall still needs to be there. You don't have to tear them down tonight. Just notice them. Notice when you pull back. Notice when closeness feels threatening. Notice the part of you that wants to run and the part that wishes you wouldn't. You're not cold. You're careful. You're not distant. You're guarding something that once felt unprotected. And maybe the most honest thing you can admit is this: you do want connection. You're just afraid of what it will cost. So let me ask you something quietly. When was the last time you let someone see the real reason you pull away? Tell me in the comments, but be specific. Not, I have trust issues. Tell me the moment you remember learning to be distant. And if you know someone who looks strong on the outside, but keeps everyone just a little too far away, share this with them. Not to call them out, just to let them feel understood. If this conversation felt like it was about you, stay, subscribe. There's more we haven't said yet.